All right. Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking some time out in your day. This has been a highly requested topic from all of you, so really, really glad that you're here with us. But before we get started, I am just going to get some quick housekeeping out of the way. So first is we want to thank Dell Technologies, as always, for providing this content, getting this content to you, and being such a great partner to Elevate. Um, just Dell, always thank you. I have a lot of fun with this team. I'm sure you've seen Jess and I don't know, this might be our 10th webinar together. So Jess, glad to have you back. But just a quick Zoom reminder. So this is being recorded, so that way we can publish this on our website once we are done with the event today. And if you have any questions, please put it in the chat and Q&A. Our speakers have been gracious enough to let me interrupt them today. So you'll get your question answered as soon as you type it, unless we are in the middle of answering another question. So please use the chat and the Q&A. And then with our new website, right, there are more and more availabilities for you to get tailored content. So make sure you update your profile and you click your topics of interest. That will help you get tailored content directly for you, get fed exactly what you want to hear instead of absolutely anything and everything. If your job is a little more focused, right, you can choose from any of those topics. Just make sure you press update your profile, and then you'll be able to choose those options. And then, as always, we do have our post-event survey. Your feedback is super valuable to the community. We want to know how we did today. We want that information from you guys so we can bring you the latest and greatest content that you're looking for. So please make sure to fill that out. And 2 lucky survey participants will be randomly selected to get a $25 Amazon gift card. Believe it or not, we're nearing summer and the holidays are coming up, so Amazon can go a long way for those potential holiday shopping. But without further ado, I am done talking. We have Gus and Jess here with us today. So Jess, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Jack. Let me go ahead and share my screen, you guys. So Gus and I are here today to talk to you guys about SupportAssist remediation scripts. But as a reminder, I wanted to do a quick lifecycle overview of the ecosystem of TechDirect. So TechDirect is the lifecycle portal that houses our pro support offer, which includes our SupportAssist connectivity technology. So as part of SupportAssist, you get access to these remediation scripts that we'll be covering today. But just as a reminder, across the rest of the lifecycle of TechDirect, you have 4 main pillars across that life cycle. You've got the build and deploy section, which houses our pro deploy offer, connected provisioning, self-healing image recovery, and things like image assist. So this is your provisioning and build area of the TechDirect ecosystem. Today, we're going to spend all of our time in the connected managed space inside of the pro support area with SupportAssist for business PCs, where we're going to talk through how to create your own custom PowerShell scripts, but also walk you through our library of robust PowerShell scripts that are already available to you. And we can also touch on some of the roadmap areas of where we see this kind of progressing as well. But also inside the TechDirect ecosystem, you have access to self-dispatch and APIs. So APIs such as ServiceNow or warranty information. You've also got some SupportAssist specific APIs to bring some of that data back into your existing SCCMs that you're utilizing. As well, at the end of that life cycle, you have asset recovery services inside of Retire and Recycle. You can also find asset appraisal in this. This is a complementary appraisal tool where you can actually get money back for those recycled products and devices that you maybe have a closet of sitting. It's not agnostic to just Dell devices, so any old printer or HP or Lenovo, you can actually recycle those for parts and get money for future provisioning projects. So that's a very quick overview of the TechDirect lifecycle ecosystem, and I'm going to hand it over to Gus to show us how to navigate into the connect and manage space, and then, of course, into the remediation section of SupportAssist. So thank you, guys. Here we go. Gus, you're on mute, buddy. There you go. I
Can
can
you
see your
confirm?
screen now. Yep,
Okay,
can hear you now.
All righty. Just a little bit of navigation. All right. So Today we're going to focus on remediation and the remediation platform that exists as part of what Jessica walked you through, Pro Support Plus, um, and maybe show you a couple of pieces that are sort of ancillary to the remediation platform. So how do I get there, first of all, right? So as I get into my dashboard here, I'm logged into TechDirect. Yeah, I have different options depending on different entitlements, but in this case, we were going down into the connect and manage side of things, and then we're going into manage PC fleet. And what we get here is, once we go into there, into the managed PC fleet, we get a fleet-wide view, right? This is an example environment, FYI, but we get a fleet-wide view of all of our devices and our trends and our health trends, for example, application experience, security experience on these devices, right, across the board. And so this is kind of our first stop shopping of, what's going on in our environment. But let's say we want to make these machines, be secure, be healthy, have good application experience. How do we do that? So we're going to drill down into the remediation sections, right? So I hit the drop down under manage, and um, in case and this is one of those side notes, if you want to, for example, run a set of remediation scripts against particular groups of devices, maybe you have ring fencing in play, maybe you have some executives that you need to care and feed their devices a little bit more robustly, I guess I say that in air quotes, because we love all of our end users. But we could set up groups and we could build those groups in such a fashion they could be geographic, they could be, like I said, finance department, accounting department, etc. And then you could apply these remediations to those particular groups, or you can send it to the entire group. And we'll also show you later how you can target devices, which is a newer feature and very handy for I want to fix a problem on this particular device. I've got somebody on my help desk talking to me and I want to fix that. So without further ado, we'll go into the remediation sections down here. And before we drop in there, I'm going to make a side call here. This manage PowerShell scripts, we're going to talk about what that means from the context of custom scripts. You have the ability to upload your own scripts, and you have the ability to sign them yourself with your own, you know, cert that you apply, or you can optionally choose to use them in an unsigned fashion. If you know the integrity of the script you're using and you feel comfortable with it, you can push these up in an unsigned fashion. We still manage the security of the script for at rest, in transit, and at execution on the device. So once you put that script on there, you can be assured that that's the script that's actually going to run on your device and not be changed nefariously or otherwise. So when you do that, that's why I drop down in here, manage PowerShell scripts. You can upload scripts, and you literally drag and drop them in there, give it a name, and then you have a whole library of scripts that you can use in that particular situation. All right, so let's get into the actual remediation platform. So what I've clicked is remediation rules. And this particular section shows us at the bottom rules that we've already created and run, and then creating a new one. And so we're going to start with the create a new rule experience, right? So I'm going to walk you through a couple of, actually about three different types of scripts, right? A fourth being the custom, right? This is ones that you actually update yourself. So the first thing you got to do is give it a name, right? And then you choose Dell workflow. These are authored by Dell, and these are what I call canned scripts, right? So they're available for your use. I'm going to change my sort to show me all the scripts that are available. As you can see, I believe we have somewhere around 77. Yeah, 77 scripts. So I'm slowly, kind of going through these, but this shows you that we have quite a bit of scripts available for you. You pick and choose these. You don't necessarily have to run all of them. You probably don't need to, but you can choose the scripts that are most applicable to you, right? So the first one I'm going to show you is what I call a telemetry fired script, right? So I'm going to go down there and look at, as an example, a remediation of a BSOD, right? So if I can remember my alphabetical order, I'm choosing remediate BSOD caused by drivers, right? And then we have a permutation of that, which is more than two in a week, right? So maybe the first one was an anomaly and it just, doesn't ever come back. We have all had those BSODs that happen one time and then we reboot and they never come back. But if it happens more than twice, then we probably got something we need to look at. So in this case, I'm just choosing the first one permutationally. So as we choose that, this is where we see things different about a telemetry fired script. And what you'll notice immediately is that the scheduled and the run once now are grayed out. And that's because the only selection is telemetry. And what does that mean? It means that this script is being managed at the server, and the server is looking at the holistic fleet of devices that you have applied for, that you've registered into your TechDirect instance. And it says, when I see this trigger condition, go and run the remediation for it, right? As opposed to schedule, run, and check every day, right? And so this is based on the data that we see on the box, that data sent up, and we send up the BSOD information. And so we only fire the remediation based on like I call a telemetry trigger, and that's the main difference. So these are much more sort of just in time. They can trigger and fire at any moment based on the fact that we have that condition occur. And what do we do in this particular instance? We check to see if we have drivers associated with the BSODs. And if so, then we update your drivers. And then the end user is basically provided with the insight of, hey, we need to do a reboot to install a new driver or a set of drivers. And so they walk through that normal process. They don't have to reboot immediately, but they eventually need to update their drivers. And then moving along, this is where I mentioned earlier, I can assign by sites or groups, right? I have this drop down here. I can say the whole of all my fleet or a particular subgroup. In this case, this would be a subgroup name. But I also, same thing with where I mentioned that you can assign PCs manually. Well, I could actually enter a service tag in this situation, right? I could enter, I'm just gonna invent one. Sorry, 705-3D123 or something like that. And that's not a real service tag, but that service tag gets validated and it's like, I didn't find that. That's not a real service tag. But if it is, then I can select it and click the add PCs side of things, right? Right now, this is grayed out, but this would be lit up. And so I have the ability to choose by service tag, and I can choose up to 30 as you see here, or I can choose a asset tag, which is a little bit different categorization of a device, right? That's usually on the bottom of your laptop. You have a service tag and an access tag, or I can choose the host name of the device, and that's assigned at the time that the OS is installed, and it can be changed. So I have the ability to sort of run this just on a select set of devices. In the case of this BSOD, it probably doesn't make sense to target a device, but if I wanted to run one of the remediations that, for example, somebody's calling, there's a OneDrive not syncing script in there, right? And somebody calls the help desk and said, hey, my OneDrive's not syncing. Well, I'd run that OneDrive thing. I'd say run once, even though and we'll show you that one of these lit up in just a second. And then I would put that service tag of that user, and then I could run that script immediately against that particular device. So it gives you some flexibility to run in a scheduled way or an ad hoc per device level. Okay, so okay, go ahead.
We did have a question come in. So that question, which it looks like Jess did respond to, but just so everybody can hear, is what is the licensing / support model for this service, per device, per usage, etc.?
Yeah, so this is covered as part of the Pro Support Plus or Flex entitlement. So that is something that you would have a conversation with your sales team at Dell to add to your devices, and it is per service tag at this point.
Yeah, good question. And I'll add on to that. So what happens if I have a mixed fleet, right? I have a device with these entitlements, and then I have some other, you can put all of your devices in TechDirect. When I choose all, it will run against only those devices that have the entitlement levels associated with this remediation platform, right? Which is Pro Support Plus or Pro Support Flex, right? So it will, you won't have to go in there and manually select the devices that have the right entitlements. It'll automatically do that for you. Good question. Okay, so the second type of script that we're going to talk about, we talked about telemetry fired scripts from a remediation standpoint, and then we have these optimization scripts, right? So these don't have a trigger condition. These are things that we want to go set, right? And you can see they're categorically a whole bunch of them here in terms of optimization. So they go out there and do a task. We know what that task is. We're trying to optimize the end user's experience. So this is a clean files one. I choose that one, and you notice that the schedule button lights up, and so does the run once now. And I'll just walk you through your schedule options, right? You can do a daily, you can do a weekly, and you can do a run once. And the difference between the run once and run once now is that this run once can be scheduled. If I want to do it on August the 20th, I know that I'm clairvoyant, and I know that that particular end user is going to have a problem on that day. I'm just joking. I would choose the run once at that scheduled frequency, and I can choose an AM or PM. And so that the AM typically runs around 8 a.m., but it can run anywhere between 8 a.m. and 11:59. And then the PM is the same. So it's a true PM up to 5 p.m. And there's a little bit of variance there so that across your fleet and across your devices, we're not firing all these things all at once, right? They are very minimum in terms of overhead to the device, really, really small blips in the radar. It runs real fast, less than a few seconds. But we don't want to run all those across all your devices and then run multiple ones at the same time on all your devices. So there's some randomness inherently built into this scheduled frequency, right? So I talked about daily, weekly, and run once. Telemetry is grayed out because this is not a telemetry fired. That means that every device will be investigated as to whether we want to run this, right? In this case, it's an optimization, so there's no investigation. We actually run the optimization. And then the run once now really fits for the targeted device where I say assign a PC mount. So if I wanted to run this against this particular service tag, then I would choose that run once now, and it would fire immediately as opposed to wait for a scheduled frequency. And then the last type of is what I call an informational, and I've got some examples of that where, for example, I am going to detect CVE feeds. I'll actually click this right here, and you can see more information about what the script does. And so in this case, we're looking for DSAs or CVEs associated with this particular device, and we use Dell Trusted Device. And it'll go out there and give us information about are there any CVEs or DSAs associated with that device that have not been resolved by some kind of driver or BIOS update, right? So this gives the admin a clear indication of I probably should go and investigate that machine and figure out why it's not getting updated via drivers, and you can set drivers within the context of connect and manage. You can set scheduled frequencies for scanning those devices and updating them in terms of firmware and BIOS. So this is a very same example in terms of you have schedule and run one now frequencies, right? So all of that is the same. These are scheduled and they're run on that device. And if we find, those things, then we send out the appropriate output. So that's how you set up, scripts to run in that scenario from a Dell workflow standpoint. I'm going to pivot over to custom workflow. Some of y'all may be interested in this. What it loads is a custom workflow canvas, right? And so the first thing I got to do is I always got to create a start event. And then I get to choose a PowerShell, right? And so in this case, I could build multiple PowerShells. In this case, I'm going to say, leave it like this and say, select the PowerShell. Oops, sorry, excuse me. And I don't have any PowerShell skills loaded in here at the moment, but remember where I showed you that inventory where I can upload a PowerShell in there? I would upload that PowerShell and then I would select it in here. And then that's the PowerShell that would run in this start event. And I connect the dots between that start event, which says, hey, this is the initiation of it, and then this is run the PowerShell. The other things that we have are what I call remediation skills, and these are like little code snippets that you can inject in there. So I can imagine a scenario where PowerShell here goes out and deletes Dell command update, right? Because I don't need it since I already have support assist, and support assist will do the driver and updates for me. So maybe I want to do uninstall DCU. And after that, I want to disable remote desktop as an example. And so I go down here and I look for that disable remote desktop. The reason I'm putting this in there is that these things get connected by trigger conditions. So when I connect the dots here, what I'm saying is when this script runs based on this trigger condition, and I'm clicking on this little bar right here, I can say, give me an exit code or output text, right? So if the PowerShell script does a write out disable remote desktop, then literally I'm looking for that output text. Or I could use exit codes, which is a little bit easier. Typically, your exit codes, if the exit 0 means I had a good status, I exited correctly, then I can say is equal to 0, meaning I actually, sorry, 0. And so basically I've set a trigger condition that when this PowerShell has an exit 0, which means it exited fine. Exit 1 would be it did not exit good and it had a bad status. If it exits 0, then I run this disable remote desktop. And so this code you don't have to write, it's already there. And we have lots of examples of other pieces I can do. In this case, I could, disable, enable, start services. Maybe when I disable remote desktop, I might want to say start this service over here. And this is how you build these sort of nested logic things, right? So I am going to connect the dot to this one. And in this case, I want to say with the display name of, I'm just going to say Gus service, right? This is a real service name as it exists in Windows services. I can say require conditional approval, meaning this part won't fire until an admin says, yes, go do it. In this case, I'm going to let it run auto magic. And then I can set a user context or a system context. 99% of the time when you're doing admin functions, you're going to do system context because you're running it as an admin. But in certain situations, you need to drop down and become the current user and execute that script at that scenario. So what I'm hoping that I'm showing you here is that I can have all these kinds of nested logics, right? And I didn't even fire up this conditional trigger, but remember I said we can have different exit values. So let's say I say this is exit 1, and then so exit 0 goes this way, exit 1 goes this way, and I can continue to nest, and it could be PowerShells that this PowerShell is maybe a master trigger of sorts, and it initiates looking at things, and then I can have sub PowerShells and very, very nested logic, right? And that's really the power behind building your own thing. All with your PowerShell and our skills, you can come up with some very, very interesting capability to run these things. But once you sort of define and build that, you're naming this. You have a PowerShell you've uploaded. You've got these skills. You've named this. Then you've created a rule that looks like a custom rule, and you can fire them at the same scenario that we've talked about earlier. The only difference is in a custom workflow, I have a few more options, and I can do some, I can fire some things in a very scheduled or run once now kind of thing. And then I can also choose some telemetry based things. When I have a real script in here, it fires up some things on the telemetry side that says, for example, I have 3 commodities, CPU, memory, and disk. If CPU is greater than 80% for 5 minutes or longer, or I can set it to 1 minute, then that can be a conditional trigger to fire off this custom workflow. So you can build a sort of a conditional trigger on top of the entire workflow with this telemetry fire thing within the context of these custom workflows. So I know that was a lot to digest, but I wanted to make sure you understood that you can roll your own. And sometimes you can just run your own PowerShell script and it's got everything you need inside of that. And you don't necessarily have to use any of these other skills. You may not even have nested logic associated with it, right? It could just be whatever it is you have as a script. That PowerShell script might do everything you need. You just want it to run my PowerShell script and use the platform to securely run that PowerShell script. Okay, so enough about how do we build rules. Let's look at the outputs of rules, right? So I'm going to go back and look at some of the rules we've run before, so you can kind of see uh, what we get out of there. So I'm canceling out of that. I'm not creating a rule. I'm going to show you a few examples. So remember we talked about telemetry fired scripts, right? This is an example of that B-side telemetry fired script. The reason I don't have all my devices in here is because, as I mentioned earlier, these only fire on demand. So these two devices in this particular situation had that condition where it found BSOD and then it fired off the attempt to remediate that BSOD. And so we give you very meaningful information. I like to look at this as red is what should catch your eye because that's a problem, and success means everything was good. I'm not so worried about that, right? In this case, we found a BSOD for this. We have a success condition in that we were able to install update successfully. In this case, we had some kind of update fail. And sometimes those update fails have a lot to do with waiting for a reboot. So it's not, when I say failed, it's not necessarily failed. And I'll show you something on this view workflow is that we can look at some different kind of things. Extended information, right, is what I call it. So if you look down in this section, this is where you typically get some extended information. In this case, we got all updates were failed. So there's some issue where this device could not update. And so that might require catching the admin's eye to go and take a look at that on a one-on-one basis and figure out what's wrong with the driver update sequence on there because it had a problem. Sometimes you'll say reboot required, right? And you know that it's not finished with the workflow because it hasn't had a reboot, and so we got a reboot pending. So point being is this view workflow shows you extended information. This shows you the sort of high level 40 character limited rule output. That's sort of the information that tells you something more about that status. So you're looking red, bad, green, good, and this is the output associated with that. So that's why we only see two in this situation. But on a scheduled script, let me find a good example of something to show y'all here. It's a little bit different, right? So we should in theory see all the devices as having been evaluated. Let me look at this clean files one. This one we've chose to run weekly. So in theory, we should always see a success. Now, what we may see is that we don't necessarily get free space reclaim. So we get a success, we ran it, but in this case, there wasn't anything to reclaim in terms of space. But I'm hovering over this one. This one's reclaimed 931.84 megabytes and on. That one got 2.1 gigabytes, right? This is an optimization script, so I would not expect to see any reds because we're always going to run it. And the only time we see a red is when that routine was not able to run on that device for whatever reason, right? There may be some problem with the machine. But you notice there's way more machines here, and that's because every one of the machines is evaluated for running that device. It's a scheduled task as a weekly thing. And so this is not a just-in-time scenario. And there's not really a lot of detail in a view workflow for this clean files, but again, I just kind of want to show you how we see that, right? We put a little bit in more information because that wouldn't fit in the rule output, but you can say that it was free. This is how much free space. And then after cleanup, now we have 474.34 gigs. So that shows you your sort of delta in your cleanup. So if you wanted to look at that extra info. And by the way, the reason the rule outputs are kind of limited in terms of 40 characters is so that you can sort the output, right? If we had a big long string, it makes output sorting. So if you wanted to just look at certain things in a sort fashion, you can sort that rule output and show me all the ones that fit a particular pattern in this situation. moving back, let me go back here and show you another example. Let's see.
Hey,
Detect
Gus,
CVEs and DSAs. Yes. Sorry.
while you take a quick second here, we got a question in
Okay.
chat.
Yes. Yep.
How different is this scripting and remediation compared to Microsoft Intune capabilities?
Yeah, good question. Um, You can similarly run scripts, PowerShell scripts in Intune, and you similarly can choose to upload scripts that are signed or unsigned. Um, but that's very much the custom route that I just showed you. There are no sort of hand Dell-authored scripts that take advantage of Dell IP. For example, there are things here that make BIOS changes, chassis intrusion, turning that on or turning that off, or seeing if there's any alerts. So the main difference is um, this is very much, we have a whole canned set of things that you might want to choose. And then the whole custom platform, I think, is much more equitable to what Intune does, is it allows you to put your own scripts up there. Um, I think we also do a little better job of showing you the output in a very sort of easy to consume and digestible format. And you can also export that so that you can do further dashboards on this information if you so choose. And so I think that functionality is what is a little different from what exists in Intune. Okay. I wanted to show you this example is because in this case we got success. Remember I told you green is good, red is something to look at. We didn't find any CVEs or DSAs on these devices, so we got green. But when we get a fail, we're we're not necessarily saying the script failed. We're saying this is a failure condition, meaning we did find some DSAs detected, right? These can be a long litany of numbers, CVE numbers or DSA numbers, and therefore they would not fit in a sortable situation from a rule output section. So all we do is tell you that they're detected, right? And you could sort on that and say, I only care about the ones that I'm showing as having detected. To look at what they are on a per device level, I click on view and I'm going to choose one of these devices that has detected CVEs, and hopefully we have some in there. I click on that, and then I see all the associated information here. And in this case, I'm not showing the numbers. Let me see if I can find a better example. This, again, please forgive me, but this is a demo environment. So some of these devices are just a hodgepodge of machines that I have in there. So choosing the last one here. So apologize for my demo environment, but in theory, I would have all of the IDs listed right after this. So maybe the DTD hasn't sent me back the data, but I showed that I had a vulnerability condition. So I would see all those IDs. I could choose to go look those up if I wanted to, or I could say, you know what, this guy really needs to be checked for driver updates because that's where most of the vulnerabilities are resolved, either from the OS side of things or from Dell firmware and BIOS updates, right? So an example of showing you that extended output, showing you how these things fire. And I mentioned earlier, I can also export all this data into a spreadsheet, and I'll attempt to pull that up. And so you get all the data that you might want to sort in your own particular way, right? In this case. Okay. I don't need to save that. And I think that's really about it. One of the things for this remediation platform, there is a legacy platform. If your support assist version isn't 4.5.2 or above, and you don't have 80% of your devices at that rev, then you're running the legacy remediation platform. And a lot of the things like the custom workflow, et cetera, are not going to exist. Some of the rule output mechanisms and the view workflows will not exist as well. So ensure you're running the latest version of Support Assist. And if you upgrade them all, you'll then see an upgrade link here that says, "Hey, I want to upgrade to the new remediation platform," and then you get all of the things that I'm showing you in this particular thing. Um, so I think that's about it. I really don't think there's much more about that. Hopefully, that gave you a little bit of flavor of how easy it is to use in Zoom, in particular the Dell-authored rules, that we have in here. And I invite y'all to take a look at them. We also appreciate feedback, so send that through your Elevate leadership. If there are things out here you'd like to see added in context, um, we definitely take Whataburger orders, as I say. And so if there's something in here that makes sense that we haven't put in here, feel free to send us some feedback, and we'd be more than happy to add this in line, add a new Dell-authored script for your consumption. So I will pass it back to you, Jessica.
Awesome. Thanks, Gus. I don't see any other questions in our chat, so I'll give you guys a few more minutes, but essentially, we just want your feedback, guys. I've given Jack a survey just for you guys to give us some verbatim feedback, because honestly, the 77 scripts you see here came from, feedback from groups like this. So we're always listening. Our ears are to the ground. And we built this custom capability also based on feedback. So what do you guys want to see next? We're working with lots of things, and even what does the next phase of this look like as you start to get into agentic? And that's really why we're here, is just to get y'all's gut feelings on, is this helpful for you guys? What else do you want to see? If you joined us at Dell Technologies World this year, we had Gus on stage with a customer who claimed that they were able to save up to 50% of their IT time just by utilizing some of these remediation scripts, and they've been able to upskill their entire IT department. And we've heard lots of feedback like that, similar to some of the other proactive and predictive automated capabilities inside SupportAssist outside of the remediation area, just for the productivity that automation brings to your day-to-day. So if you have any questions on that, we have our next SupportAssist Masterclass on August 19th. And we're going to work with Jack and the team to get us some on-demand sessions that give you a Tech Direct overview and SupportAssist overview at a high level, and continue to come visit you guys with these deeper dive one sessions. So let us know what you want. As always, totally appreciate all of your feedback and your time. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Jack?
Jess and Gus, you made my job easy plugging the survey for me, so I don't even have to do that.
Nice.
But it does look like we have some more questions that kind of came in as you were speaking. So from Chris again, he said, excellent overview. Many vendors are trying to push DEX solutions. So seeing something that's driven from the OEM is super reassuring. So that's just some great feedback to y'all.
Yeah.
But then he followed up with another question about, can these remediations be automated? Namely, X happens, Y script is auto-targeted.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what that gets into is what I call the imagine a world, right? It's like not being in product management, I can't say, hey, we'll do these things, but I can imagine a world where when I mentioned some of those telemetry fired mechanisms, and Jessica brought up AI, is that we intelligently fire these things on demand as opposed to a very prescriptive schedule-based mechanism, right? Um, I think that's going to make things more efficient in terms of only affecting and looking at the devices that need to be remediated, as opposed to the overall inspection of each device to determine whether they need that. Optimization is a little bit of a different scenario, right? Because if you choose to optimize a device in a particular way, you probably want to send it to all, right? Or maybe a subset of groups. But I do see us in the future having much more of these sort of telemetry fired mechanisms where you don't have to worry about scheduling it. You just say, I want it to be applied. And while we're on that topic, uh, I imagine a world where you could choose different options for these scripts as an admin. And I use an example of there's a rename your computer, right? And in this case, these are all hard coded, right? This says Dell and the service tag, and so the device is named that literally as the host name, or model name and service tag, or OS and service tag. Um, I would love for the script to have an argument as you're going through that menu, that wizard that says, "Hey, I want to use this kind of format for my host names. Can you run this script and handle that, that user input, if you may, admin input?" So a lot of these things, the thresholds have been defined, based on best practice at Dell, but those thresholds might not work for everybody, right? We have a script that says, "Hey, go let the user know that they should probably do a reboot," and we pop up a thing. We all know that reboots fix a lot of Windows problems, so this is something that admins asked us for. This threshold is set to 7 days and it's hard coded. Imagine where you could go in there and add it and change that to 14 days or every 3 days or whatever. Those are the kinds of things. Also, the feedback we're looking for is, what's that next evolution to this platform? Because once we have the scripts out there, we can do a lot around that, and we're definitely looking to improve that experience.
For
So
sure. And
hopefully,
one thing I wanted to bring up about the DEX platform is, support assist capabilities with the insights and scores that we've been collecting for years is honestly very complementary into your next think and systracks. Like, we're never going to be at that level of a next think or systrack, but something to understand from the telemetry captured from a support assist perspective is it's 100% hardware focused. Like, all of the telemetry insights, scores, remediation scripts that you see here are specifically designed to keep your Dell hardware functioning at peak performance. So that is something that sets the bar above those absolutes next think systracks of the world, because they're never going to be able to touch us below the OS. And that's really where this experience shines.
right on.
Yeah. And then there's one other question, Gus, for you. Do we share the code that's inside these PowerShell scripts? Can they actually get down into the weeds of these to get a little bit more granular today?
We do not, and I think we've gone back and forth. I'm a sharer, right? I would love to share the code, but I think it comes down to security IP. We want to make sure that we don't make it easy for somebody to look at that and say, "Oh, I know how to break that." So it's a little bit of security by obfuscation. So at this time, we do not share that code. It is our intent to take a lot of functionality that exists in the scripts and provide them in that custom skills set. So I hope that you will start seeing more skills based on some of these scripts.
Awesome.
Any,
Well, I think that's it. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. I mean, Gus,
awesome.
Jess, thank you for your time. This is fantastic. I'll plug the survey again since I didn't get a chance to earlier. But please make sure you fill that out. There will be a screen that pops up right when you close out of this webinar. It will also be emailed to you. All of these resources that have been posted will be attached in that post-event email as well. So if you're looking for the information, you can find it. You can always reach out to us at Member Services. We are here to help, here to get you this information, connect you directly with Jess or Gus if you want. Yeah, I mean, with that, just Jess, Gus, Dell Technologies as a whole, thank you all for being with us today. Do you have any other closing thoughts before we give everybody a little time back?
No, thanks for your time, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to share.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.
Have a good day. Bye bye.
Bye, y'all.